So the way this video is going to work is the first half is going to be about Ukraine and the second half is going to be about programming, freelancing, and so forth, because you may just be interested in one or the other, so you can definitely skip to whatever half you prefer or just watch the whole thing. I think I'm pretty good at answering questions. It's up to you. So let's get into it. I've been living in Ukraine for 1 year as an American. So on Instagram, I asked you guys to ask me any questions you have about that or whatever else you want. And I said anything was fair game. Well, let's see what you guys came up with. I'm going to answer a lot of your questions right now, try to make this as entertaining as possible, and just give you the raw truth of kind of why I'm here, what I'm doing here, and how it's been, in case you're considering moving overseas, whether you're from America or whatever. So let's dive in. The first and I think most important question a lot of people asked is, why did you decide to live in Ukraine? And it's kind of a weird story because I didn't originally plan to come here. Of course, last year all the COVID stuff started. And what happened is I was trying to go to Budapest to meet my friends. And long story short, my test was not valid. So I had to sleep in the Budapest airport and decide where to go because I was blocked at the border, literally. And what ended up happening was Ukraine was one of the few places open in the world at that time. This was last August. So I had a friend living here, so I just said, why not? Came, liked it well enough, learned there's one of the best tax rates called I won't get too far into it, but you can get a 5% tax rate as a freelancer here. And it just checked a lot of the boxes for me, cool people. It isn't the cheapest place you're ever going to live, but it is very, let's say, good value for what you get. And also got a girlfriend and so forth. So that's what happened and just ended up staying kind of by coincidence, but it's a great place to live. Next question is, how long am I planning to stay? Well, I would love to have Ukraine as a base for, among other reasons. Well, first, there's some of the best talent, I think, best value talent, let's say, in the world here. So if you're looking to start any kind of company, especially an IT company, this is really a world-class place to be for that. And there's huge outsourcing, agencies that just build apps for other people. So, full transparency, it'd be really cool to have a agency out here. Beyond that, Europe's pretty hard to beat in the summer because the sun's going down at 9, everyone's out and about, and it surprises a lot of people, but Kyiv is just a really amazing city in the summer. And with that said though, I did spend the last winter here and would prefer to never do that again, at least not for the whole time. So I'm weighing options on different bases I might have around the world as a second location. And there's also kind of tax implications there too. So I know tax is a bit boring, but yeah. Another person asked, what made you move to another country in the first place? So why am I even living overseas at all? And I guess the answer is, this is just kind of the way I live. I seek out challenges and hardship. I quit my, comfortable job. You live places where you don't know the language, and I think this really shapes your character. And I don't think we naturally get enough of that with our generation, right? Because past generations, they had wars and so forth, economic hardship. And I think there's really something that's lost there when you don't have some kind of, trials of fire. And so the only way to get that is really self-imposed. And this allows you to develop character traits, let's say, that you can't get otherwise. So I hope that makes sense. So the next question is, what type of visa residence permit did you get and what were the requirements? So the requirements are nothing. You can just come here and you can basically buy a residence permit for around $1,700 and it lasts for 3 years. And the way it works is you basically set up a company, but your company doesn't need to have any revenue. So it's a shell company that you can use if you want. I think I will use mine later on, but I haven't yet. And what that gives you is just a free pass to live here. Now, keep in mind, if you stay for more than 6 months, there's tax implications there. So that's something you have to figure out too. And you may have obligations in your home country. I mean, I'm not a tax expert though by any means, so do your own research. But long story short, this is, I think, one of the easiest places to move to if you are looking to live in a different country long term and you don't need a job or anything to do that. Okay, someone asked a bunch of questions about the prices here in Ukraine, and what I will say is the prices here in Kyiv versus the rest of Ukraine are night and day. So if you go to a city like Odessa, Lviv, Kharkiv, the prices are kind of what you would expect, very low and kind of proportional to how low the wages are in Ukraine, which I believe is the lowest in Europe. But Kiev is just on a different level where, your rent prices are going to be on par with some cities in Western Europe. And that's just because, there is a fair amount of money in Ukraine. I mean, it's a big country and it all flows kind of into Kiev. So yeah, what I'm paying for my apartment now is $1,300, but it's like complete city center, pretty spacious. So that's why I kind of tell people who want to move out here to save money or like to get their coding career going, to build some entrepreneurial venture. I usually recommend one of the other cities, Lviv or Odessa, are the two I would choose after Kiev. But yeah, long story short, it's affordable, but maybe not as much as you would think. So a lot of people, of course, are asking about the girls in Ukraine, and what I will say first is I do have a girlfriend for around 6 months, but I think a lot of people come to Ukraine and they think it's going to be really different than it actually is. So the thing is, yes, this is a, developing nation, but it's also a more traditional nation, meaning you can't just really come here for a weekend and get a girlfriend or pick up girls, right? Girls here they're actually much smarter than that, I would say on average. And this is anecdotally from myself and other people I've met. And you could say this is true for Eastern Europe in general. So here's the thing. A lot of people do end up coming here and meeting like a long-term relationship. They actually get married a lot of the time. So if you're looking for something serious, I think it's a bit better. And if you're looking for something not so serious, I don't think it's the best country for that. And I'll just say that, as euphemistically as I possibly can. Okay, a lot of people asking about the IT industry in Ukraine, and what I would say about that and about the, let's say, labor market here in general is, from what I'm seeing, it's going to be pretty much the best value, one of the best value places of anywhere in the world. And I think that's partially because of, Ukraine's economy isn't so great. They're one of the lower income nations in the, definitely in the Western world. But the people here, they're incredibly talented and hardworking from what I've seen. And I think that's why so many companies are outsourcing their IT work to Ukraine. And like I said, if I was going to start an IT company, I would hands down do it here, not just for the talent reason, but also there's less regulations than you're going to find other place. And okay, you could say people who exploit these kind of differences are evil capitalists, but what you're really doing is you are paying people the market rate, and you can pay them above that if you want, right? But really, you're just pumping money into the economy. So I think it's actually good for everyone. But it doesn't just have to be the IT industry. I mean, for example, just moments ago, I had a chef here. You can get a private chef here. They cook food for 3 days for you, and it was about $20. So, I mean, I think that sounds pretty good. It saves you, so many hours every week, and that's like $20. And I think pretty much everyone can afford, $20 twice a week for all their food. Next one's a developer question. How much math have you used in your career? Big O notation and so on. So I think there's a big difference between math and programming math, which is more, well, it's called discrete math. So basically it's a intersection of math and logic, where you have concepts like set theory, which are, mathematical in practice. But the thing is, what we think of as traditional math, like algebra, calculus, and so forth, it kind of builds on itself over time. And in my view, computer science math is kind of over here in its own little bubble. So the way I feel with math is, and I'll just be honest, I was terrible at math in school because I think early on I kind of fell behind and didn't really engage with it. So from then on, I was just getting, C+, B-, all this kind of stuff through high school. Then I never really returned to math until coding, and it just wasn't the same kind of math. It was applied math where you kind of learn the theory and it helps you with the practice and so forth. And it felt very practical, and I think I'm just a more practical person, so this kind of programming math resonated with me a bit more. As for whether you need math before you start programming, definitely not. I would say program first, and then if you want to learn supplementary concepts like set theory and really dive deep into that, there's some great resources to do that. But I would say don't let that hold you back. And they also asked about big O in the question. I don't think big O is really math. It's just if you understand, I guess, basic algebra, you can grasp that concept, because it's just how an output scales with an input and what that relationship is. So yeah. Next question is, what are your goals with a bootcamp a few years from now? And if you don't know, I run a freelance developer bootcamp called Freemo. We take people from zero to freelance software developer. completely remote income. You get all the benefits of freelancing. It can also take you to different places too. Like if you do want a full-time job, having that freelance experience is just, yeah, I mean, it sets you ahead of pretty much everyone else. So with that said, what is my goal? Well, my goal is to just get students as insane results as possible by any means possible. And it's not just for the students' benefit, it's for my benefit, because I want people to see what we've actually done for people, which speaks louder than anything I can say, where it's to a point where we're just unquestionably the go-to option for this outcome, which I do personally believe is like objectively just the most incredible outcome. Because if you could have the income of a developer with complete time and location freedom, why would you not want that? You can really design your lifestyle from the ground up when you have that option. So I don't know, our results are already at a point where I'm like pretty blown away, but I think the long-term results are gonna really be beyond whatever I can imagine, and then that will feed back to, you know, attract more students, which will create more results. So it's just really exciting. Okay, Damien asked, what do you think about AI in relation to programmers and their job stability in the next 10 years? So 10 years is anyone's guess, but in 5 years, I would say things are gonna be pretty different than they are now. One thing that recently came out, so Microsoft, which owns GitHub and they own VS Code, they released this extension for VS Code called Copilot. And what it does is you just type, you describe what you want to code, and it will code literally the entire file for you. So if you haven't seen it, just watch video demos of this thing. It's pretty insane. So the good news about this is it actually just makes your life purely better, right? Because previously, where you would have had to research the answer to that, it's almost like having Google plus autocomplete directly in your code editor, which is pretty sweet. Now, the bad news is programmers are going to be much more productive, and that's bad news because there's less, required overall, let's say in traditional coding jobs. But this has already been happening. I mean, this is nothing new because we've seen things like platforms, take more and more market share, where now if you're on something like Shopify takes care of the payments, the authentication, and you're still writing code on top of it, but things you previously needed to code from scratch every time, they're already taken by this no-code tool, and it's just happening everywhere at once. So is it scary? Yeah, but there's nothing we could do about it. AI is also taking every other job too, so you can always really just do what you feel is the best decision at the time, and then that will open up opportunities you can't even foresee yet. Okay, someone asked, how many years of experience is it preferable to have to start freelancing? It's my controversial opinion, but it's backed up by our student results. You really don't need any, and people don't believe that. I explain it to people every day because the way it works is take someone who knows zero code and take you who just knows how to change the color of a button in CSS. Most people, they're just never gonna learn coding, even to a basic level. So they will just never be able to change that button. It doesn't matter how simple it is. Now you, who only knows how to change buttons, you can change that button. So that's already a service you can provide. And you might not believe there are jobs that simple, but there really are. So what I say to people is once you have a basic foundation, you can confidently do a few things. And I will say you should be able to really do those things and test your knowledge. Don't just watch videos, build a few projects. Then you're really ready to go, okay? And that's how we ramp people up really, really fast to get those first jobs and getting paid work. That's real momentum. And once you have momentum, your motivation issues magically go away. Then the theory you do continue to learn, you can feed directly into your ongoing real life practice, and it just becomes a positive feedback loop. And that's pretty much at the core of our bootcamp model. And it's also known as learn and earn. So someone else said they don't have enough experience because they don't come from a tech background. I'm assuming that's when they're applying for jobs and so forth. So what I would suggest is getting experience, and you don't have to really get permission to do that from a gatekeeper. So yeah, one big way to go around a gatekeeper is just go straight to where the work is, and that would be on, for example, freelancing websites. Do those simple projects, and then if people say you don't have experience, you can show them that you do. So Steve said he's having difficulty understanding JavaScript. Any tips? What I would say is most people, they try to learn too much theory before practicing. So as soon as you learn even the basics, go to codewars.com, work on the simplest problems, struggle with them, and then look at the solution. And practice is not just the best way, it's legitimately the only way to actually learn coding. So until you've coded it yourself, you haven't actually done it. That's kind of how you have to think about it. And perhaps if you do have a really strong quantitative background, you can kind of build the solutions logically from bottom up. But if you don't, like me and most people, then you kind of have to look at them first, reverse engineer them, and then you conceptualize things in your own way. And I think that's why my style of teaching and way of explaining things actually resonates with more people, because I don't have that formal quantitative background. So I kind of explain it in, let's say, layman's terms, or the way I figured it out. But anyway, these problems, if you look at them enough, you will naturally start to recognize patterns, because we are biologically wired to recognize patterns, and that's how we learn. Brendan asked, how much have you spent on ads? Actually a lot. I'm sure if you watch this channel, you've seen a lot of my ads. And I actually get some pretty interesting emails where I'm driving people to the brink of insanity with the frequency of my ads. So someone asked, is it true anyone can learn to code? And I don't think anyone can. And the biggest thing is actually being motivated enough to do it. And I think, you have to have something driving you. You can't just casually, pick it up by watching a few videos. You have to be really motivated to commit to something long term. And for a lot of people, that comes from, pain. I think being deeply unsatisfied with your current situation, that's kind of what drove me. And a lot of people I see have good and very fast success, but it can also be motivated by just ambition or improving your situation. But I do think that's the biggest factor. I think there is an intelligence component, but what is intelligence at the end of the day? It's kind of the speed at which we can learn things. And I do really think that the majority of people, given enough time, effort, and motivation, they can actually learn it. Particularly the easier types of development. Okay, not everyone's going to be coding machine learning algorithms. I'm definitely not going to be doing that anytime. Someone asked, is it possible to become a blockchain developer by taking Shopify web development route? Because Shopify is what we cover in free mode. So I would say this completely honestly, just go straight for the path that you want. If you want to become a profitable freelancer and follow our model while simultaneously developing a pretty good foundation in web development, then join us. But if you want to be a blockchain developer for whatever reason, then do that. I'm not going to sit here and say that our bootcamp's going to make you lose weight, get a girlfriend, and solve all your problems. SemStings8 asked, Shopify or WordPress? It's a great question. Both huge platforms where you can do platform development. Both have different pros and cons. WordPress does take longer to ramp up on because there's more contextual knowledge that you need. The platform itself and coding on it is less user-friendly. But I will be honest, WordPress does have more overall freelance jobs. And in fact, I think it has pretty much the most freelance jobs of any platform out there. It's just kind of insane how many there are. But with that said, over the long term, I see kind of WordPress going down and more other more niche platforms gaining more market share. For example, if you're going to start a new non-e-commerce website today, I would recommend 100% Webflow over something with WordPress. And Webflow just has so many benefits. It's hard to enumerate all of them. And then if you're going for specifically e-commerce and that, you want a more friendly backend and super modern themes and something less clunky and something that's going to handle more abstraction for you. So that's naturally going to be Shopify. When I look at Shopify, by contrast, Shopify is easier to ramp up on. It's growing extremely fast, so I think the future is a bit brighter. But at this point in time, it does have slightly less jobs than WordPress. However, you could also say those jobs, or rather the clients for those jobs, are legitimate businesses. They're more profitable, more willing to reinvest their profits back into their bread and butter, their business, which is their online store. Vesh asked for a country-specific discount for the course because we'll get more profit and increase your students. That is true. We could just, do everything on the basis of money, but we actually chose to charge, one specific price for everyone, no special discounts regardless of where you are, who you are, and we don't run cheesy promotions because, at the end of the day, we're trying to think long term and we're trying to think fair. So if someone joins and then we have a 40% off sale 2 days later, how are they going to feel? So, our primary duty is to actually our current students and getting them the best results, making sure they're happy. So that's kind of our core basis for every decision, whether it's price or what we actually add or anything like that. Okay, guys, I think we covered a lot there, and a lot of the questions left are similar to the ones I've already answered, so I don't really want to repeat myself here. But with that said, thanks for hanging out with me, and let me know if you like this kind of video where I'm just talking rather than doing something technical or specific like that. And if you're interested, I'd love to talk more about, kind of my life here, what I do, but I want to make sure you are interested before I spend the time doing that, especially if I'm going to be going out, filming, potentially, trying to create something interesting for you on the ground. So let me know what you think. Let me know what you want more of, and talk to you soon.